Hello, Grammar Gumshoes, and welcome to Hard Boiled English Live. I'm your humble host, English instructor, coach, tutor, and grammar detective, Paul Duke. And I'm broadcasting to you live from Vancouver, Canada, to YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, Twitch, and now a brand new platform called LiveSpace. So those of you watching on LiveSpace, welcome. I hope you enjoy this show. On this show, we investigate and hopefully solve your grammar mysteries. What's a grammar mystery? What's an English mystery? Well, I like to think of it as something in English grammar that has confused you or that you've never fully grasped even though you've been taught it. So, for example, sometimes on this show, people ask me, what's the meaning of this word? Well, that's sort of like a vocabulary question. So I rather devote our time to looking at sentence examples that are confusing and try to figure out the grammar that's happening in there. I think for those of you who are at the intermediate or above level, I think that's the best way to learn and master English grammar. Look at examples and break them down. Well, we'll get started in a few minutes. I have a few things to mention as well, but as we're getting warmed up here, I'd like to say hello to everyone. I'd also like to mention that this will be the last show for a few weeks. I'm going to shut down the show through the month of August because I have a few other projects to get to. But most importantly, my home studio is getting far too hot. Right before this show, I recorded my writing podcast that I co-host with writing coaches Philip Charter and Pete Posner. And so the studio was already hot. A lot of heat generated in here by lights, computers, cameras. So I'm going to shut down for a few weeks and then start again in September. So who's here this morning? We have Stacy Jun. Stacy's with us, longtime viewer and friend. Your Selma Shows is with us. By the way, guys, I'd like you to say hello, but also tell me what country you're in. Because if you're new, we may not know. We have Sleepwalker with us. Sleepwalker is from Russia. Your Salma Shows. What country are you in? Some people seem to know each other. We have Kamon Asan. Kamon Asan, what country are you in? Okay, that's right. I think you've said that before. Your Salma Shows is in the USA. Great. What city in the USA are you in? So if you're just joining, guys, please say hello in the comment threads. And I'd also like to know, how are you spending your summer? Are you working? Are you studying? Are you enjoying your hobbies? Are you sitting on a beach somewhere? What are you doing to enjoy your summertime? Okay, it's private. Fair enough. We don't want people showing up at your door asking you grammar questions. So keep your city to yourself, that's fine. So you're asking me, why is your background white? Mine? Because that's a whiteboard, right? It's a marker board. So the entire background is my whiteboard, so we can answer and examine sentences and grammar on it. That's why it's white. And I'll just clean that off. Was my background not white the last time you watched the show? I think it's always white, isn't it? I use a Canon camera. I think it's a Canon M5. Okay, so Sleepwalker says, this summer I'm trying to not melt too. Okay, yeah, it's hot in lots of places in the world. Where I am, it's very hot, and the sun comes in my windows all afternoon. And when I'm doing this show, I have to shut my air conditioning off. Otherwise, it makes too much noise in the microphone. And you won't hear me. So it gets pretty hot in here, and it's at the point where it's a bit dangerous. So I'm going to shut down the show for 3 weeks, 4 weeks maybe, until it cools off and I can comfortably do the show again. Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. This is from a movie called Mary Poppins, I believe. It's not really a word, I don't believe. I think it's originally from the Disney movie Mary Poppins from the 1960s. I think that's the first time I heard it. It's in a song, maybe. I definitely know the word, but I can't say I've ever used it. I don't think it's typically used. I would be surprised if somebody could find me an example of where it's been actually used to express its meaning. Okay, so in the US they use Fahrenheit, 69 degrees. Today it can go up to 81. Okay. Yeah, Mary Poppins. There's a song in there about supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. It can mean extremely good, sure, but so can the word extremely good. If you have a choice between supercalifragilisticexpialidocious and extremely good, choose extremely good. It's shorter, it expresses the meaning. Or you can use an expression like fantastic, superlative, wonderful, tremendous. Although Donald Trump has used the word tremendous quite often, so it's taking on a new association. Okay, so anyone else joining us now? Well, we have a couple of... you might go to the UK, Salma. Your Salma shows. Salma, do you also do live streaming or make videos for YouTube? Stacy has been enjoying summer watching animal videos on YouTube. There's so many cute videos about cats and dogs. Yeah. I personally prefer the videos that are about rabbits. There's a lot of really fun videos I've seen with rabbits. There's one of a rabbit riding on top of a turtle. Some really cute stuff. So cats and dogs for sure, and rabbits. Okay. Well, Salma, if you would like to give us the link, I'm sure the rest of us would love to check out your live stream or your video. So please feel free to share your YouTube channel if you want. What's your favorite color? Mine? I suppose my favorite color is probably blue or red. I like both, but maybe blue. Maybe I like blue the most. Most of my shirts are blue. They tend to be blue. Yes, my raincoat is gray and my suit is black, but in terms of actual colors, rather than grayscale tones, I think I prefer blue or red. Okay, no live streams. Very well. Black, gray, or brown? Yes, I like all of them. I like all colors. All colors are good. We should be grateful that we live in a world with lots of different colors. My eyes are kind of blue-gray. So what happens is if I wear a lot of gray clothing, I tend to look kind of pale. So I've been told by my fashion advisors that I should wear blue because it emphasizes the blue in my eyes rather than the gray. We were discussing some supernatural things. Have you ever seen or come across something like that? That's a good question. I'm a person who believes what I have evidence to believe, and I'm open to the idea of ghosts, telekinesis, supernatural things that we don't understand. But I myself, I can't recall ever experiencing anything like that. I've experienced sort of weird, what we might call synchronicities in the world. Do you know Synchronicity? Famous song by the British group The Police, but it's also a concept by Carl Jung. The idea is that everything in the universe is connected, and sometimes these connections kind of come together in unusual ways. This has happened to me before. For example, I was walking down the street one day along the side of a building downtown, and I thought about this friend that I haven't thought about in years, like 20 years. Haven't seen him, haven't talked to him, haven't had interaction with him on social media, haven't even thought about him really. One day I was walking down the street and he popped up in my mind. And after about 20 steps around, I walked around the building and there was that guy. Right? Now we might call that a coincidence. You might say that in some way something was connecting me. Something in my mind knew that he was around the corner. We also might consider the fact that our ears and our senses are much stronger than we understand. So for example, I might have a very, very clear memory of my friend's footstep, the sound of his footsteps, the way he walks. Everyone has a bit of a unique walk. And I have a memory of hearing the way he walked from our childhood together. And then downtown, somewhere in my mind, I picked up the sound of his footsteps around the corner of that building. Couldn't see him, but somehow I heard him and thought of him. And then around the corner I met him. Or it was just purely coincidence, but it seems too unlikely. Okay, well, this is our first grammar question. We might as well get started. Okay, were and where. What's the difference between were and where? Well, the big difference is were is a verb. Where, we might call a question word. We might call it a relative pronoun. It has several jobs in grammar. We might call it an adverbial conjunction if it's connecting sentences. What it isn't is a verb. It's never a verb, which means we can use it differently in sentences. We were studying yesterday. Right? Were is the plural past tense of am or be. It's the be verb. This is not. This is a question word. Where are my books? Right? In this case, the verb is are. Books is the subject, and we don't know the object. That's why we're asking about it. So it's kind of we can call it the missing object, right? We don't know where my books are. And the answer to that sentence might be, the books are on the table. And on the table, we might consider, oh, sorry, guys. Where is this? Yes, the question is, where are my books? The answer might be this: the books are on the table. And the on the table is like a preposition phrase, or we might even consider it an adverb. because it's describing the location. The books are on the table. That's the big difference. Forget about pronunciation. Forget about whether or not they seem to look the same or sound the same. That's irrelevant to grammar. Pronunciation is a different matter. These words are very different. One's a verb. One is basically a pronoun. So grammatically, they are extremely different. They couldn't be more different. The only similarity is they're sort of spelled and sound the same. So pronunciation is were, where, were. So the pronunciation is a little different. But I want you to think that for you, even if you think they sound similar, they're totally not similar. They're very different words, okay? I'm just going to get out of the raincoat before I melt, because there's actually no rain in here. So Selma, hopefully, I think your name is Selma, or are you in Salma, the city? Maybe that's the mystery. Yes, hopefully that answers your question. That's the difference between were and where. One is a verb, one's a pronoun. Forget about the pronunciation. The pronunciations might sound similar to your ear, but they're actually even different pronunciations. Were, where. But there's nothing similar about them, other than they might sound a little similar. By the way, I have seen one of your videos recently. You look very tall there. What is your height, if you don't mind to say? What video was that, Sleepwalker? I am 186 or 6'2". That's my height. Yeah, I'm pretty tall. Tall enough that it's hard to find shoes and boots that fit. A lot of stores don't sell my size. Stacy says, I often go to a cafe to drink watermelon juice, but it's hard to enjoy outdoor activities because it is scorching in Seoul these days. Yeah, I think Seoul gets very hot in the summer. The last time I was in Seoul was in the winter, and the winter was very cold, but pleasant. Naeem is here, Naeem Akhtar. Deja vu, yes, I've felt deja vu many, many times. And I'm not convinced that deja vu is supernatural. I think it may just be a function of memory. I'll tell you a story. For years and years, I had a dream. It happened when I was a child, teenager, adult. Many years I had a dream. I had a dream that I was in a car driving down a mountain road, and the mountain opened up like a house, like a garage. Rolling door opened up. And we drove right in. I had this dream. And after some time, I asked my parents about it. I said, have I ever told you about this strange dream I had? And I explained what the dream was. The car driving down the mountain opened up like a garage. And my mother told me, oh, that wasn't a dream. When you were 1 year old, when you were a child, an infant, we drove down a mountain into a giant garage door because my father used to work for NORAD, the North American Air Defense operation in Canada, and their headquarters is buried inside a mountain, like a James Bond movie. And to get into the headquarters, you had to go into this giant door that rolled up. So one day we visited my father's workplace. They had a kind of family day where kids can come and look at all the cool technology. Anyway, that was a memory. Now, I was under 1 year old at that time, right? It was a memory that as an infant I recorded and then forgot about it. I forgot that that experience happened. And years later, instead of remembering it, it popped up in dreams. So I thought it was a dream, but it was actually a memory. So I'm not convinced that déjà vu is supernatural. Sometimes I think it's just things that we have experienced and forgot that we experienced them, right? So then in adult life, when we see the same thing again, we don't remember explicitly that experience. I didn't remember that we actually drove into this mountain. I thought it was a dream. So I think when we're very young, we experience things or see things or hear things and then forget that we had seen those or heard those. And then later, we might encounter those things again. And when I say experience things, I actually drove into the mountain with my family. But when you're a child flopping around the floor, you might also see something on your TV, right? You're too young to understand a TV show, but your parents might be watching something, and you might just see it out of the corner of your eye, not know what it is, not understand it, but remember it. And then years later, let's say your parents are watching a show, and there's a picture of the Canadian mountains, and you're 6 months old. You see that picture of the Canadian mountains and the little village in the middle of the mountains. And then you forget about it. It was just a TV show. Years later, you're an adult and you're traveling in the Canadian mountains and you go to the little village there and you go, wow, this is déjà vu. I feel like I was here in a previous life. Well, maybe you just saw it on TV or in a movie and then forgot you had seen that movie. I think that happens, right? Or when we're very young, we read a book about a place and then forget about reading the book. And then, because when you read a book, you imagine the situation, you form a picture. That picture can get recorded as a memory. And then later in life, maybe you visit that place and it seems familiar. I've never been here. Well, maybe you traveled there in your mind, in your imagination when you were young. So I think this is very fascinating stuff. I think there's a lot of things about memory and experience and perception that we don't quite understand yet. I'm not a religious person, so I don't necessarily follow the idea that there's another world that we can access with supernatural connections. I'm not convinced of that. We'll see. Okay, so Jonas is with us, and Jonas has a question. Is this a question? What is your question, Jonas? I see 2 sentences here, but I'm not sure what you want to ask. Let's see. These are the keys of my car. These are my keys of my car. Are you asking me which one is correct? Well, I think they're both possible. These are my keys of my car. That's fine. These are the keys to my car. That's fine too. You could also say something simpler. You could say these are my noun plus noun. We've talked about this many times. Car keys. Right? Noun plus noun. First noun describes the second noun. That's probably the most common way to say it because it's short and concise, and English likes to be short and concise. These are my car keys, right? These are the keys of my car. Might be a little more natural for this one. These are the keys of my car. These are the keys to my car. They're both fine. Yeah, there's been a lot of discussion, guys, about causative grammar. So maybe we should look at that. Let's talk about this one first. It looks like it could be a short one. What's the difference and? I think, Selma, you're noticing that some words in English either sound the same or look the same, but they're different. And it's important to understand the difference is often meaning or grammar. So they may look the same, but they have two different grammar functions and two different meanings. So let's talk about an. An is an article. There are three main articles: a, an, and the. Right? So, what do I have here? Well, let me see what I can find. I don't have an object at my disposal, but let me make a sentence. This is an, well, let's do that. Let's say, here's a book, The Old Garden, by a Korean writer named Hwang Suk-young. This is open book. So this is a. Let's do this first. This is a book. A book. But if I want to describe it with an adjective, I might say open book, right? The book is open, adjective, noun. Because that starts with a vowel, A, E, I, O, U, sometimes Y, we now change to an open book, an egg. This is an envelope. So when you have a noun or an adjective noun combination, you need an article. If that's a vowel, this is an addition to your house. This is an extra money. Well, let's say an extra payment. This is an exciting story. Okay? If you have a vowel, it doesn't matter what the vowel is, these are just things I can think of. An interesting topic. All right? If it starts with a vowel, you need to use an. Now, I have to say, and this is not very nice, but in the US, a lot of times people use a, even if there's a vowel. So when you have a consonant like book, consonants B, D, F, G, all the letters in English that are not vowels. Vowels, A, E, I, O, U, O, E, E, A, E, E, I, and so on. You should use an. But in the US, a lot of people say a. So they might pronounce this. This is a open book. This is a egg. This is a envelope. This is a addition. This is a extra payment. This is a exciting story. This is a interesting topic. You might hear that in the US. The truth is, in the rest of the English-speaking world, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, the UK, and so on, that sounds bad. That sounds like bad grammar. Okay? It doesn't sound good. When I hear it, it sounds strange to me. So the rule is an with vowels. That's the article an. Okay? It comes before a noun or an adjective noun combination. So the next question is, what's and? What is and? And is a conjunction. And is a conjunction, and conjunctions join sentences like this. I like books, and I read many. Okay, so and we should put a comma here. I like books, that's one independent clause, subject, verb, object, complete idea. I like books. I read many books. Right? There's our object. I like books and I read many books. So this connects two sentences. That's and. That's its job. That's basically its only job, right? Connecting clauses. Or you can connect a list, right? I eat pizza, comma, sushi, comma, dumplings, comma, and ice cream. Okay? Now you're connecting the last noun in a list. That's very different than an ice cream bowl, an open book, cooking an egg. All right? Right. The video about possession, right? So that video is talking about noun plus noun structure and how it is not the same as possession. That's a common mistake. If you haven't watched that video, I'm going to put it in the comments again because it's a very important video, because this is a very common grammar structure in English and a lot of students never learn it. So I'm going to post the link here and I want you guys to watch it someday, maybe after this live stream. I highly recommend you watch it. It's a video I made with my students. And it will explain this idea of using nouns as adjectives. Noun plus noun. Like, this is a bottle, obviously. That's the noun, bottle. But what kind of bottle is it? Well, it's a spray bottle. Spray is a noun. It can be a verb too, but it's a noun. Think about this lovely hard-boiled English grammar detective mug or cup. What kind is it? Well, it's a tea cup or coffee cup. Tea and coffee are nouns, but they tell us what kind of nouns they are. So, computer mouse, right? These are noun plus noun structures. It's very important to learn in English because it's very common. It's everywhere. And instead of saying longer sentences like, these are the keys of my car, you can just say, these are my car keys. Noun plus noun. Car is a noun, keys are a noun. So rather than discussing that here today, I'd like you all to catch up with Jonas, because Jonas has watched it. And the next time we meet, we can talk about it. Yeah, so this is a little weird, right? If we say my car's keys, because the car doesn't own the keys. You do, hopefully. The car is an inanimate object. It can't really possess things. Now, we can use possessive to talk about ownership, things you have purchased or bought with money. We can also talk about belonging, right? Like this is Paul's arm. Well, I didn't buy my arm, right? My parents didn't buy it. It's part of me. It belongs to me. So, not keys, because the keys are separate from the car, but you could say like the car's engine, the car's window. That's kind of possible, Jonas, right? Because that's not expressing possession, it's expressing part of. So that's the little exception there. But car's keys is weird because the keys are a separate object. They're not part of the car, even though they work with the car. So the car can't really possess them. They are car keys. What kind of keys are they? Home keys? House keys? No, car keys. The first noun tells us what type it is, not who owns it. Right? And you should learn this because it's super common in English. It's so common that sometimes if we have one syllable nouns, they will merge and become a single noun, like Backpack. Backpack is one word. It's what we call a compound noun. A noun made of two nouns, one syllable each, and eventually over time that noun plus noun structure turns into one noun. Backpack. Homework. Textbook. Right? The rule is if it has one syllable, you can merge them into a compound noun. Car keys. Maybe in the future that becomes one word. I don't know. Who's with us? Yes, I think this is Marta. I'm not sure. But welcome to the show. We have some new viewers with us. This is great. We have Puneeth with us. What country are you in, Puneeth? Yeah, look at these examples. So this is the noun adjunct. Water bottle, noun plus noun. Football game. Game is a noun. Football is a type of ball. In fact, football is also made of two nouns, foot and ball. Because they're one syllable, they've become a compound noun. So here we have a compound noun plus noun. What kind of ball? What kind of game? Football game. Yeah, I think it's worthwhile remembering them if you can. But, memorizing things has so much value. Eventually you have to try using it. And once you've learned it, this is what we call top-down learning. Bottom-up learning is when you learn it from a book or a source and it goes into your brain. Very, very important is top-down learning, where after you've learned this, start noticing it. So when you read, hey, look, that's one of those categories. And then check what you know. Oh, it's one of those categories of objects and nouns plus nouns. So once you've learned something, guys, start paying attention to examples out there. You'll start seeing them and noticing them. And you can apply what you've learned to what you experience. And that's when learning really starts to happen. So if you've learned something like this from my chart or my video, and you don't fully understand, that's normal. That's the instruction period. That's the bottom up. You're absorbing a new idea. After that, start paying attention when you read English or you hear English. Hey, there's one of those examples of one of those categories, right? Yeah, more examples of compound nouns. These are classmates' notebook. But also pay attention, Jonas, to noun plus noun structures like water bottle. They're equally common. Necktie. Necktie, two words, right? Business suit, two words. Zaza is with us. Welcome, Zaza. Knowing the rules does not guarantee that you will start using it correctly. Absolutely. You have to sort of process your new knowledge. So learning something from the bottom up into your brain is good, even if you memorize it. But then you have to use that knowledge and start noticing it in real examples and saying, that's how you use it. I've learned that. Or, there's an example of and an, right? We just talked about the difference between and an, the article. Start noticing that when you read, especially when you read. And this is, again, why reading is so important for English. Because if you just listen and talk, and sound the same, or were and where might sound the same to you. English is not a language you can really well learn speaking and listening only. It really isn't. You have to read it. You have to read English. It's irregular. Who, whom, and whose. Okay. And I think that's caught up. Let's talk about this. Who, whom, and whom. Whose. Okay. Now, who, let's start with who. And this is where grammar is really about structure. I think most of you know who, is a question word, right? Who ate my pizza? Okay? We have a verb, we have an object, but what we don't know is the subject. Who ate the pizza? We know that the answer might be something like blank ate your pizza, right? Object, verb, subject. But we don't know who the subject is, so we're asking who. So who is standing in for the subject? Who is a pronoun, right? It replaces the unknown subject. We're asking who the subject is, who did the eating. So it's a pronoun. It substitutes for a subject we don't know. Okay? Now, when we make adjective clauses, right? He is the man. Okay, which kind of man? This doesn't give us a lot of information. Now we could put an adjective here. We can say he is the tall man. Or we can use an adjective clause. And an adjective clause is a clause, right? Subject plus verb, which means we can describe the man not just in the way he looks, but what he does with a verb, right? Because we can express action with the verb. So we could say he is the man. Let's say, runs marathons. Okay? Verb, object. There's no subject here. But we want to describe the man. What kind of man? Man runs marathons. So we can use, we have two choices, but one of them is who. We can also say that. And this is what we call the relative pronoun. Because it's making this adjective clause, okay, it's acting as the subject, verb, object, it's making that relative to the man. It's describing the man. This is called a relative clause or an adjective clause. It's a clause acting as an adjective to describe man. Okay? And who replaces the subject. Relative pronoun replaces the subject, the guy who runs. That's who. Whom replaces an object. Okay? So, let's have an example of that. So, he is the man. What kind of man? Well, we know that Susie, my friend Susie, studies, let's say she studies running with him. He's the running coach. So what do we have over here? We have subject, verb, object. The man, or the teacher, or the coach, okay? And Susie studies with him. That's the man. We want to describe the man with that clause. The problem is him. Him is the object, right? Susie studies marathon running. That's the direct object. This is the indirect object. With him. So we can do something here. This has to change. What we're going to do is we're going to use a relative pronoun to replace this. We're going to say whom, right? But Susie is the subject. This is not the subject. This is replacing the object. And we kind of have two choices here. We can say with at the end, whom Susie studies with. Traditionally, classically, we in English countries are taught we shouldn't end with a preposition. I don't think that's important. I'm comfortable if you end with the preposition, but don't forget it, because you don't study him, you study with him or even under him. So you can't eliminate the preposition. Classical teachers, traditional teachers, old-fashioned teachers will say you can't have that there. You've got to put that here. He is the man with whom Susie studies, period. Now, I don't care if you put preposition at the end. I'm comfortable with that. But I'm not comfortable if you eliminate it from there and don't use it here. And unfortunately, that's very common. People are saying things like, he is the man whom Susie studies. That sounds like Susie studies in a microscope, the man is in the microscope, or Susie is a surgeon studying his body. That's weird. That's a different meaning. It's possible. But she studies with him. He teaches her. He's a coach or a teacher. So preposition, relative pronoun, replacing the object. That's whom. And the other way to remember is that if you have a preposition here, you must have whom. Preposition does not work with who. Okay? Preposition plus whom. And again, it's the object. That's really the only time you need to think about whom, when you're making these relative clauses. Okay? And the whom replaces the object. Here, who replaces the man, the subject. Okay, I'm going to stand aside. Hopefully that answers your question. Yeah, now here's a good example. He is the man whose car is blue. In this example, whose, great example, Jonas, thank you. Whose is also expressing possession. Okay? The man is, the car is not the man, and the man is not the car. This is the man's car. He owns the car, right? So we have subject, verb, object, relative pronoun, subject, verb, and then adjective. So here we have a subject. So this is not whom. It's more similar to the first example, right? Whom, whose is replacing the subject, right? But the man who owns the car. So this is the pen. Well, that's not a good example. Sorry. This is a great example, Jonas. Perfect sentence. He is the man whose car is blue. The car is not describing the man. We're talking about his possession, the car that he owns. Here's another example from Jonas, which is nice. He is the man whom I talk to, right? So look at the adjective clause here. Subject, verb, to, right? You talk to somebody. You don't talk somebody. You talk to somebody. Who? Well, the object's over here, the man. I talked to the man. So we can cut the repetition of man, man, right? We don't want to say man twice. He's the man whom I talked to, or to whom I talked. But please, guys, do not forget the to, because we do not talk the man. We talk to the man. We have to keep that idea. Talk, verb, preposition to, the man. And this is a big problem nowadays because people are not using that preposition. They're chopping that off. He's the man whom I talked. Another example would be, Vancouver is the city I live. You don't live a city. You live in a city. So if I'm going to make that sentence, Vancouver is the city I live in, or Vancouver is the city where I live, or Vancouver is the city that I live in, or Vancouver is the city in which I live. You need that preposition. This topic is called adjective clauses. That's really where that information becomes important. Pallavi is with us. Hi, Pallavi. Thank you for joining. Okay. Your Salma show says back. I don't know what that means. Sorry. Whose shoes are those? Zaza say. Yeah, you're looking at shoes and you don't know who owns them. You don't know the subject. The answer of this question would be Paul owns those shoes, or those are Paul's shoes. We don't know whose they are, so we say whose, possession. We have Luis Gamero with us. Thank you. Heriberto Nieto Nunez. I'm not sure, but thank you for joining us. Okay, so these sentences are not too different. What's different is own way has been eliminated in the second one. I would say both are right in their own way. I would say both are right in their way. I like number one better because you're individuating them. You're saying each one has their own way, their own unique way of being right. But they're both possible, right? Number two is implying their way. But own way makes it very clear, more clear, that we have two different ways. Each has their own way of being correct. Both are fine, but number one is more clear. Guys, we are just about out of time, so I'm going to have to wrap this up. Hopefully I helped you with some of these English mysteries today. I have to be strict with the time because, as I've mentioned, it gets very hot in here. And I recorded a podcast 1 hour before this show, so this room is very hot at the moment. A reminder, guys, that I will not be with you next week or for 3 weeks. I'm going to shut down the show for August and take care of a few other projects, and we'll be back up and running in September. So hopefully during August, you don't forget your English. Please collect some great examples of weird English that you want to clarify. Please contact me on social media, connect with me, watch my videos, but connect with me and send me your strange examples, just like you do here. So while I'm away from you for the next 3 or 4 weeks, keep thinking of examples, maybe take some notes when you hear something that you don't understand, so that in September we have lots of questions to work on, okay? Yes, I guess that's all I have to say to you guys. I want to say thank you for this spring and winter season of Hard Boiled English Live. It's been great to be with you each week. We're going to take a little break for 4 weeks and then pay attention to social media, and you'll see the new posts coming in September for the new show, the new season of the show. I'm going to have to break this show up into seasons in order for it to continue, because it takes its toll on me, it takes its toll on my studio, and so on. Remember, guys, as I've said before, I want this show to be free for everyone, but it does cost me a lot of money to produce. So if you do feel generous and you want to support the show, you can scan this QR code and it takes you to a website called Buy Me a Coffee, and you can donate $1 or more to this show. And this doesn't go into my Ferrari budget. It goes into covering the costs of producing this show, which you don't see, but this costs a lot of money to do this show every week, all year. So if you can contribute a little bit of something, it does help, and I greatly appreciate it. Okay? And you can find this link in the description box when you see the recording. If you haven't seen the full show today, I will post the recording on YouTube tomorrow. So guys, I'm going to say goodbye. Thank you for a great season of Hard-Boiled English Live. For those of you who joined the show for the first time this summer, thank you. For those of you who've been watching for a long time, thank you for joining us every week and being dedicated grammar gumshoes. And what's a grammar gumshoe? Who remembers? Grammar Gumshoe is a grammar detective, and I'm not the only one. You guys are also my grammar detective assistants. And it's fun to be with you every week and exploring the mysteries of English grammar. Okay, I'm going to say goodbye in a moment. Let's just get this QR code off. Thank you again for joining me today, guys. It's great to have you with us every week. It's great to help you. And I will see you in September. Until that time, guys, I want you to keep learning, keep studying, take some notes, collect some English weirdness mysteries, and I'll see you in September. Until then, stay healthy and stay cool, guys. Thanks for watching tonight's show. If you have an English grammar question, an English mystery, contact me on social media and send me a video of you asking the question. I'll investigate it on a future show. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell button to get all the updates about videos and events. If you're feeling generous, you can also donate to the production costs of the show at Patreon or buy me a coffee. Finally, until the next time I see you on Hard-Boiled English Live, I want you to keep learning English. Stay healthy and stay cool.